Hollywood's golden age was built on glamour, scandal, and secrets that studios would kill to protect. But beneath the glittering premieres and million-dollar smiles, some of Tinseltown's biggest names were dabbling in something far stranger than mere affairs or addiction. Theosophy, a mystical movement promising hidden masters, reincarnation, and cosmic secrets that mainstream America would have found deeply unsettling. While the studios carefully crafted wholesome images for their stars, these celebrities were secretly attending seances, studying ancient wisdom, and believing they could contact beings from other planes of existence. What drew these famous faces to such controversial spiritual paths? Was it genuine seeking or something darker lurking beneath the surface? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 7 Golden Age icons whose secret spiritual lives would have shocked their adoring fans. 1. Gloria Swanson. Before Sunset Boulevard immortalized her as the delusional Norma Desmond, Gloria Swanson was one of silent cinema's most bankable stars, earning an astonishing $20,000 per week. But Swanson's real obsession wasn't fame, it was spiritual enlightenment. Swanson became deeply immersed in theosophical teachings during the height of her career, attending meetings and studying the writings of Madame Blavatsky. She believed fervently in reincarnation and claimed to have vivid memories of past lives, including one as a male warrior. This wasn't casual interest. Swanson structured her entire lifestyle around these beliefs, becoming an early adopter of health food, meditation, and what we'd now call holistic living. Her spiritual convictions often clashed with studio expectations. While Paramount wanted a glamorous vamp, Swanson was more interested in karma and cosmic evolution. She reportedly consulted astrologers before signing contracts and believed certain directors had known her in previous incarnations. What makes Swanson's involvement particularly fascinating is how she never truly hid it, yet the press largely ignored this aspect of her life. Studios preferred audiences see her as a fashion icon, not a mystic. In her later years, Swanson became even more vocal about her beliefs, but by then, Hollywood had moved on, leaving her spiritual journey as one of cinema's forgotten footnotes. 2. Elvis Presley. The king of rock and roll secretly walked a mystical path that would have scandalized his Bible Belt fan base. While Elvis publicly maintained his Christian image, singing gospel and attending church, he was privately devouring theosophical texts with an almost obsessive hunger. Elvis's spiritual awakening began in the early 1960s when his hairdresser, Larry Geller, introduced him to The Impersonal Life and various theosophical works. What followed was a complete transformation. Elvis began carrying spiritual books everywhere, underlining passages, and engaging his inner circle in late-night discussions about reincarnation, astral projection, and hidden masters. His bedroom at Graceland became a temple of sorts, filled with books on theosophy, numerology, and Eastern mysticism. Elvis believed he had been chosen for a higher purpose beyond entertainment, that his fame was merely a vehicle for spiritual awakening. He spoke of seeing visions in clouds and experiencing what he interpreted as cosmic revelations. Colonel Tom Parker was reportedly furious about this spiritual detour, fearing it would alienate Elvis's conservative Southern fan base. The colonel allegedly had Geller fired and Elvis's metaphysical library confiscated. But Elvis never fully abandoned these beliefs. Those close to him say he continued reading theosophical material until his death, hiding his spiritual seeking behind closed doors while performing gospel publicly. The contradiction between Elvis's public Christianity and private mysticism remains one of rock history's most intriguing secrets. 3. Shirley MacLaine. Long before she became Hollywood's most famous New Age advocate, Shirley MacLaine was quietly exploring theosophical ideas that would later explode into mainstream consciousness through her controversial books. Her spiritual journey didn't begin in the 1980s as many assume. It started decades earlier during her rise to stardom. MacLaine has openly credited theosophical concepts as the foundation of her spiritual worldview. The ideas of karma, reincarnation, and spiritual evolution that she later popularized in Out on a Limb were directly drawn from Blavatsky's teachings and the broader theosophical tradition. She simply repackaged ancient mystical concepts for a modern audience. What's remarkable is how MacLaine transformed from closeted seeker to outspoken mystic. During the Golden Age, she kept these beliefs relatively private, focusing on her Oscar-worthy performances. But behind the scenes, she was attending meetings, corresponding with spiritual teachers, and developing the worldview that would later make her both famous and infamous. Her willingness to eventually go public cost her credibility with many in Hollywood, who dismissed her as eccentric, yet MacLaine never wavered. She claimed memories of past lives as court dancers, prostitutes, and even a male pirate. Whether you consider her brave or delusional, MacLaine's journey from secret theosophist to America's most visible mystic represents a fascinating evolution from Golden Age discretion to modern spiritual celebrity. 4. Charlie Chaplin. The beloved little tramp had a spiritual side that studios desperately wanted hidden. Charlie Chaplin moved in circles deeply influenced by theosophical thought, and his films reveal a philosophical depth that went far beyond slapstick comedy. Chaplin's connections to Theosophy came through his social circle in early Hollywood, where the movement had gained surprising traction among intellectuals and artists. He was known to attend gatherings at the Crotona Colony, a theosophical community in Hollywood that attracted numerous silent film personalities. These weren't casual visits. Chaplin engaged seriously with questions of consciousness, human evolution, and spiritual purpose. His films, particularly later works like Modern Times and The Great Dictator, reflect theosophical themes of humanity's spiritual evolution and the soul's struggle against materialistic forces. The famous final speech in The Great Dictator reads almost like a theosophical manifesto, calling for brotherhood and spiritual awakening. Chaplin's political troubles and exile from America overshadowed any discussion of his spiritual interests. The FBI was more concerned with his alleged communist sympathies than his metaphysical beliefs, but those who knew him described a man deeply concerned with humanity's spiritual condition, not merely its political one. His genius may have been comedic, but his private seeking was profoundly serious, rooted in mystical traditions that mainstream America would have found deeply suspicious. 5. Rudolph Valentino. The original Latin lover died mysteriously at 31, but not before immersing himself in occult teachings that fascinated and disturbed those around him. Rudolph Valentino's involvement with Theosophy and related mystical movements was one of silent Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Valentino was introduced to theosophical ideas through his second wife, Natasha Rambova, a costume designer deeply embedded in occult circles. Rambova was a devoted student of mysticism, and under her influence, Valentino began attending seances, studying astrology, and exploring theosophical concepts of karma and reincarnation. the couple became fixtures in Hollywood's spiritual underground. What makes Valentino's involvement particularly intriguing is how it affected his career. Rambova's spiritual advisors allegedly influenced his film choices, leading to several commercial disasters. Studios blamed her mystical meddling for derailing his career momentum. The couple reportedly consulted spirit guides before making major decisions, a practice that horrified practical-minded studio executives. Valentino's sudden death from peritonitis sparked wild speculation. Some devoted fans believed he had ascended to a higher plane. Others whispered that his involvement with dark spiritual forces had somehow contributed to his demise. His funeral attracted over 100,000 mourners, some claiming to receive messages from his spirit. Whether coincidence or cosmic consequence, Valentino's brief, blazing life remains intertwined with the mystical beliefs he pursued so passionately. 6. Greta Garbo. The most mysterious woman in Hollywood had secrets that went beyond her famous reclusiveness. Greta Garbo's fascination with Theosophy and Eastern mysticism informed her legendary desire to be alone, transforming what many saw as eccentricity into something approaching spiritual discipline. Garbo's interest in mystical teachings developed during her European years and intensified in Hollywood. She was known to practice meditation decades before it became fashionable, and her famous solitude was reportedly influenced by theosophical concepts of inner development and spiritual retreat. She sought experiences beyond the material world that Hollywood represented. Close friends described Garbo as genuinely seeking something transcendent. She corresponded with spiritual teachers, collected mystical texts, and expressed belief in reincarnation. Her abrupt retirement at 36, walking away from fame at her peak, shocked an industry that couldn't comprehend voluntary withdrawal from stardom. But through a theosophical lens, Garbo's retreat makes perfect sense. She had achieved worldly success and found it spiritually empty. Her remaining decades were spent in quiet contemplation, walking Manhattan streets anonymously, living simply despite her wealth. Those who dismiss Garbo as merely antisocial missed the deeper current running through her life. She wasn't hiding from the world. She was seeking something beyond it. Her mystery wasn't cultivated for publicity. It was the natural expression of a soul genuinely uninterested in material fame and focused instead on inner evolution. 7. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling star known for drinking, brawling, and scandalous affairs, had a secret intellectual life that included serious engagement with theosophical ideas. Errol Flynn was far more complex than his notorious reputation suggested. Flynn was raised in Tasmania and Australia, where Theosophy had established significant footholds. His mother was interested in spiritual matters, and Flynn encountered these ideas young. Despite his later reputation as Hollywood's most hedonistic star, he maintained a lifelong interest in questions of consciousness, death, and what lay beyond. His autobiography reveals a man haunted by existential questions, curious about reincarnation, and surprisingly well-read in mystical literature. Flynn reportedly believed he had lived previous lives and would live again, a belief that perhaps contributed to his reckless approach to his current incarnation. If death was merely a transition, why not live dangerously? This creates an intriguing paradox. Flynn's wild behavior, typically attributed to mere hedonism, might have been philosophically informed. His famous quote about having lived life according to his own beliefs takes on new meaning when viewed through this spiritual lens. He wasn't simply irresponsible, he was potentially operating from a worldview that saw this life as one chapter in an eternal story. Flynn died at 50 from a heart attack, his body ravaged by excess. But those who knew him intellectually described a seeker, not just a sinner. His secret spiritual interests complicate the simple narrative of Hollywood's most notorious bad boy. From the king of rock and roll to the most mysterious woman in cinema, these Golden Age icons shared a secret fascination that would have shocked their carefully managed public images. Theosophy offered them something Hollywood couldn't: meaning beyond fame, purpose beyond profit, and the tantalizing possibility that their souls would continue long after the cameras stopped rolling. Were they enlightened seekers or simply celebrities looking for escape from the pressures of stardom? Perhaps both. What's certain is that beneath the glamour of Hollywood's greatest era, mystical currents ran deep, influencing careers, relationships, and life choices in ways the studios desperately tried to hide. The next time you watch a Golden Age classic, remember, the star on screen may have believed they'd lived 1,000 lives before and would live 1,000 more.